Hello everyone, friends. Today we will immerse ourselves in the world of ancient Egypt, specifically Ramses II and his great empire. But before we embark on this exciting journey, please like, subscribe to the channel, and let us know in the comments from which part of the world you are joining us on this adventure. In the golden sands of the Nile Valley, around 1303 BCE, a child was born who would become one of history's greatest rulers, Ramses II, known as Ramses the Great. His story begins not on a throne, but in the bustling, sun-drenched palaces of the New Kingdom, a time when Egypt was at the height of its power. The son of Pharaoh Seti I and Queen Tuya, Ramses was groomed from childhood to lead an empire that stretched from Nubia in the south to the Levant in the north. This is the tale of his youth, a journey through a world of gods, warriors, and scribes, where a young prince learned the art of kingship in the shadow of his father's legacy. The New Kingdom, Egypt's most glorious era, was a land of contrasts. Fertile floodplains fed by the life-giving Nile, surrounded by harsh deserts that guarded the kingdom's borders. Memphis and Thebes, the twin hearts of Egypt, buzzed with activity. Temples to Amun-Ra gleamed with gold. Markets brimmed with traders from distant lands, and the royal court shaped the fate of millions. Into this world, Ramses was born, not as an only son, but as one of many in a sprawling royal family. Yet even as a boy, he stood out, marked by ambition and a fierce determination to prove himself worthy of the double crown. From an early age, Ramses was immersed in the education of a future pharaoh. Imagine a boy of 7, standing in a palace courtyard, his small hands gripping a bow as a grizzled general teaches him to aim. Military training was paramount. Egypt's power rested on its chariots and armies, and Seti the Wise ensured his son knew the weight of a spear and the speed of a horse-drawn chariot. Ramses learned to ride, to wield a khopesh, the curved sword of Egyptian warriors, and to command men with authority. By age 10, he was accompanying his father on campaigns, watching as Seti subdued rebels in Canaan or strengthened forts along the Nubian frontier. These early experiences burned into Ramses a truth. A pharaoh's strength was measured not just in words, but in victories. But kingship was more than warfare. In the cool, columned halls of the palace, scribes taught Ramses the intricate hieroglyphs that recorded Egypt's history. He studied the annals of past pharaohs like Thutmose III, whose conquests expanded the empire, and Hatshepsut, whose trade expeditions brought wealth. Religion, too, was central. Ramses memorized rituals to honor Amun-Ra, the sun god whose favor ensured Egypt's prosperity. Priests showed him how to offer incense and pour libations, preparing him for his future role as a god-king, a living bridge between mortals and the divine. Even as a child, he understood that a pharaoh's power came not just from armies, but from the belief that he was chosen by the gods. Life in the royal court was a blend of splendor and discipline. Picture a banquet in Memphis, golden plates piled with figs and roasted ibex, musicians playing lyres, and nobles in linen kilts vying for the pharaoh's favor. Young Ramses, dressed in a pleated kilt and a broad collar necklace, would have sat near his father, observing the politics of the court. Seti I, a stern but capable ruler, was a model for his son, balancing diplomacy with force. Ramses saw how his father negotiated with Hittite envoys or rewarded loyal nomarchs, the governors of Egypt's provinces. These lessons in leadership, knowing when to listen, when to command, shaped the boy into a ruler. At just 14, Ramses was named co-regent, a title that thrust him into the heart of power. This wasn't unusual in Egypt. Pharaohs often shared the throne to ensure a smooth succession, but it was a heavy burden. He joined Seti on royal tours, inspecting temples, overseeing grain harvests, and meeting the people who toiled along the Nile. In Thebes, he walked among the towering statues of Karnak, feeling the weight of his destiny. By his late teens, he led small military campaigns, quelling unrest in the south or patrolling trade routes. These early victories, though modest, built his confidence and reputation among Egypt's elite. Yet Ramses' youth wasn't without challenges. As one of many royal sons, he faced rivals within the family, siblings who might have coveted the throne. The court was a maze of intrigue, where loyalty was never guaranteed. His mother, Tuya, a formidable woman, played a key role guiding him through the politics of the palace. Outside, Egypt's enemies, the Hittites in the north, Libyans in the west, watched for weakness. Ramses knew that when he became pharaoh, he would inherit not just power, but the constant threat of war and rebellion. By the time Seti I died in 1279 BCE, Ramses, barely in his early 20s, was ready. He ascended the throne as Ramses II, his coronation a spectacle of divine approval. Crowned with the blue Kepresh war crown, anointed with sacred oils, and hailed as the living Horus. The boy who once trained in dusty courtyards was now the ruler of an empire, tasked with upholding Maat, the cosmic order that kept chaos at bay. His youth had forged him, a warrior trained in battle, a scholar versed in sacred texts, and a leader shaped by the Nile's rhythms. The rise of Ramses was more than a prince's journey. It was the dawn of a reign that would define Egypt for decades. His early years, filled with lessons of war, faith, and governance, prepared him to lead an empire at its zenith. As we move forward, we'll see how this young pharaoh wielded his power, building monuments, waging wars, and crafting a legacy that still echoes through the sands of time. In the world of ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was more than a king. He was a living god, a divine bridge between the mortal realm and the eternal cosmos. For Ramses II, who ascended the throne in 1279 BCE, this sacred role defined his reign and shaped the heart of his empire. As the embodiment of Horus, the falcon-headed god of kingship, and the son of Amun-Ra, the supreme sun god, Ramses carried the weight of divine responsibility. His every action, whether leading armies, building temples, or offering sacrifices, was seen as upholding Ma'at, the cosmic order that kept chaos at bay. This chapter explores how Ramses embraced his role as a god-king, weaving religion and power into the fabric of Egypt's new kingdom. The concept of the pharaoh as a deity was ancient, rooted in Egypt's earliest dynasties. By the new kingdom, this belief was unshakable. The people saw Ramses not as a mere man, but as a divine force who ensured the Nile's floods, the sun's rise, and the land's prosperity. Imagine a temple in Thebes, its towering pylons carved with scenes of Ramses smiting enemies or kneeling before Amun-Ra. These images weren't just art, they were propaganda, reinforcing his divine status. Priests, powerful figures in their own right, taught that only the pharaoh's rituals could appease the gods, securing Egypt's stability. For the common farmer toiling along the Nile, Ramses was a distant but sacred figure, his name whispered in prayers for bountiful harvests. Ramses's divine duties began each day with rituals. Picture him at dawn in the Temple of Karnak, the spiritual heart of Egypt, surrounded by priests chanting hymns. Dressed in a linen kilt and a broad collar of gold and lapis lazuli, he offered incense to Amun-Ra, its sweet smoke curling toward the heavens. He poured libations of wine and water, reciting prayers to ensure the gods' favor. These ceremonies weren't mere formalities. They were acts of cosmic balance. A failed ritual could anger the gods, bringing drought or disaster. Ramses, trained since childhood, performed these rites with precision, his voice echoing through the hypostyle halls as he invoked the protection of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Beyond daily offerings, Ramses played a central role in Egypt's great festivals. The Opet festival, held annually in Thebes, was a spectacle of divine renewal. Imagine the scene: thousands lining the Nile's banks, cheering as a golden statue of Amun-Ra was carried in a bark from Karnak to Luxor. Ramses led the procession, his chariot gleaming, flanked by fan-bearers and soldiers. The festival wasn't just a celebration. It reaffirmed his divine connection, uniting the people in worship. By participating, Ramses renewed his own divinity, ensuring his legitimacy as Horus incarnate. The crowd, from nobles to laborers, saw their pharaoh as the guarantor of Egypt's harmony, a figure both earthly and eternal. Temples were the stage for Ramses's divine role. He commissioned colossal structures, like the hypostyle hall at Karnak, where 134 massive columns stood like a forest of stone, each carved with his name. These weren't just buildings. They were sacred spaces where gods and pharaoh met. At Abu Simbel, far to the south, Ramses ordered 4 giant statues of himself carved into a cliff, their serene faces gazing over Nubia. Inside, reliefs showed him offering gifts to Ra-Harakti and Ta, blending his image with the divine. These temples served a dual purpose. They honored the gods and cemented Ramses's immortality, ensuring his name would endure for millennia. Yet being a god-king came with immense pressure. The priests, especially those of Amun, wielded vast wealth and influence, sometimes rivaling the pharaoh's own. Ramses had to balance their power, granting them land and gold while asserting his divine authority. The people too expected miracles. When floods failed or crops withered, whispers of doubt could spread. Ramses countered this with propaganda, inscribing his victories and piety on every temple wall. His famous treaty with the Hittites, carved at Karnak, wasn't just a diplomatic triumph. It was proof of his divine wisdom, a pharaoh who could bend even foreign kings to Ma'at. The sacred role also shaped Ramses' personal life. His chief wife, Nefertari, was often depicted as a goddess-like figure, her image gracing temples alongside Isis. Their marriage was a divine partnership, symbolizing the union of Horus and Hathor. Ramses's many children, over 100 by some counts, were seen as extensions of his divine lineage, potential heirs to his godhood.
Ramses II, crowned pharaoh in 1279 BCE, was not content to merely rule Egypt. He sought to immortalize his name through stone and grandeur. In the New Kingdom, a time when Egypt's wealth and power dazzled the ancient world, Ramses became the ultimate builder, erecting monuments that proclaimed his divine might and reshaped the landscape of his empire. From the colossal temples of Abu Simbel to the sprawling Ramesseum in Thebes, his constructions were more than architecture. They were declarations of eternal power, designed to awe his subjects, intimidate rivals, and honor the gods. This chapter delves into Ramses's monumental legacy, exploring how he carved his name into history with stone, sweat, and ambition. The scale of Ramses's building projects was staggering, even for an empire flush with gold from Nubia and trade from Punt. His vision took root early in his reign, driven by a desire to surpass his predecessors. Thebes, the religious capital, became a canvas for his ambition. At the Temple of Karnak, He expanded the hypostyle hall, adding towering columns that rose like a forest of papyrus, each inscribed with his cartouche userma atre setepenre. Imagine workers hauling massive sandstone blocks, their chants echoing as they aligned each column under the scorching Sunday. These columns, some over 20 meters tall, were not just structural, they were symbols of Ramses' divine connection to Amun-Ra, whose temple he enriched with gold and offerings. Far to the south, in Nubia, Ramses created his masterpiece, Abu Simbel. Carved into a cliff face, 4 colossal statues of the pharaoh, each 20 meters high, guarded the entrance to a temple dedicated to Ra-Horakhti, Ptah, and Amun. Picture the scene at sunrise. The first rays of light strike the statues, their serene faces glowing as if blessed by the gods themselves. Inside, reliefs depicted Ramses' victories, like the Battle of Kadesh, blending propaganda with piety. A smaller temple nearby honored his beloved wife, Nefertari, as Hathor, her statue flanked by smaller figures of Ramses. These temples weren't just religious sites, they were a bold statement of Egypt's dominance over Nubia, a region rich in gold but prone to rebellion. The Ramesseum, Ramses' mortuary temple in Thebes, was another testament to his grandeur. Spanning acres, it housed a massive statue of the pharaoh, once standing 17 meters tall, its fragments later inspiring Shelley's poem, Ozymandias. Imagine priests moving through its courtyards, offering incense amid walls carved with scenes of Ramses smiting enemies or presenting gifts to Osiris. The temple also served practical purposes, with storerooms for grain and libraries for sacred texts, showing how Ramses blended spiritual devotion with administrative might. Its ruins, even today, whisper of a pharaoh who built for eternity. Building such monuments required immense resources and organization. Thousands of laborers, farmers in the off-season, skilled artisans, and prisoners of war worked under the direction of architects like Penray of Memphis. Stone was quarried from Aswan, floated down the Nile on barges, and shaped with copper tools and sheer manpower. Imagine the dust and clamor as workers dragged granite blocks, guided by overseers with papyrus plans. Skilled sculptors carved intricate reliefs, while painters added vibrant reds, blues, and golds to bring scenes to life. These projects weren't just feats of engineering, they were acts of collective will, binding Egypt's people to their pharaoh's vision. Yet, these monuments also served political ends. Ramses faced threats from the Hittites, Libyans, and internal rivals, and his temples were propaganda carved in stone. At Luxor, he added a courtyard with statues of himself as Osiris, linking his rule to the afterlife. In Pi-Ramesses, his new capital in the Delta, he built a city of palaces, temples, and barracks, its turquoise-tiled roofs gleaming under the Sunday. This city wasn't just a seat of power, it was a showcase of wealth, designed to impress foreign envoys and cement Ramses' legacy as a unifier of Upper and Lower Egypt. The cost of these projects was immense, straining Egypt's resources. Grain stores fed workers, gold paid for imported cedarwood, and taxes pressed the peasantry. Some scholars suggest Ramses' ambition sparked resentment among overworked laborers or overburdened nomarchs, the regional governors. Yet, for the people, these monuments inspired awe. A farmer passing Abu Simbel or a trader visiting Karnak saw their pharaoh's power etched in stone, a reminder that Ramses was no mere man but a god-king whose works defied time. Ramses' monuments were also acts of devotion. By building temples, he honored the gods who legitimized his rule. At Abu Simbel, the inner sanctum was aligned so that twice a year, the sun illuminated statues of Amun-Ra and Ra-Horakhti, a feat of astronomical precision. By 1274 BCE, Ramses II, barely 5 years into his reign, faced a defining test of his power, the Battle of Kadesh, a clash against the Hittite Empire that would echo through history. Fought near the city of Kadesh in modern Syria, this battle was a struggle for control of the Levant, a vital trade hub linking Egypt to Mesopotamia. Ramses, eager to prove his divine strength, led one of the largest armies Egypt had ever assembled. The battle, though inconclusive, showcased his military prowess and led to the world's first recorded peace treaty. This chapter explores how Ramses wielded Egypt's military might, turning a near defeat into a triumph of strategy and propaganda. The Hittites, led by King Muwatalli II, were formidable rivals, their empire sprawling across Anatolia. Kadesh, a strategic fortress, was a prize both powers coveted. Ramses, now in his mid-22nd, marched north, with 4 divisions named Amun, Ra, Ptah, and Seth, comprising some 20,000 soldiers, chariots, and archers. Picture a dusty plain under a blazing sun. Ramses, in a golden chariot, his blue war crown gleaming, leads a column of spearmen and charioteers. The Nile's wealth funded this army, with bronze weapons, horses from Nubia, and chariots crafted in Memphis's workshops. His goal was clear: seize Kadesh and secure Egypt's northern borders. Disaster struck early. Hittite spies, posing as deserters, misled Ramses into believing their army was far away. He advanced recklessly, camping near Kadesh with only the Amun division. Suddenly, 2,500 Hittite chariots charged from hiding, shattering his camp. Imagine the chaos. Egyptian soldiers scrambling, tents collapsing, and Ramses, surrounded, fighting off attackers with his Kopesh. His personal guard, the Shurdan mercenaries, held the line as he rallied his men. This moment, immortalized in temple reliefs, shows Ramses as a lone hero, though his leadership and reinforcements from the Ptah division turned the tide. The battle raged for days, neither side claiming victory. Ramses' chariots, swift and deadly, countered the heavier Hittite vehicles, while archers rained arrows from the flanks. The Orontes River, flowing near Kadesh, became a barrier, trapping Hittite forces. Ramses' inscriptions at Karnak and Abu Simbel depict him as triumphant, driving enemies into the river. In truth, Kadesh remained Hittite, but Ramses' survival was a feat of courage and tactics. His ability to regroup and fight on showcased Egypt's military resilience. The aftermath was groundbreaking. In 1258 BCE, Ramses and the new Hittite king, Hattusili III, signed a peace treaty, etched on silver tablets and later carved at Karnak. This treaty, the first of its kind, set borders, promised mutual aid, and ended decades of conflict. Imagine diplomats exchanging tablets in a grand ceremony, with Ramses and Hittite envoys under a canopy, the Nile in the background. The treaty stabilized the region, allowing trade to flourish and securing Ramses' northern frontier. Ramses turned a stalemate into a legend. His reliefs and poems, like the poem of Pentor, celebrated Kadesh as a divine victory, portraying him as chosen by Amun-Ra. These accounts, carved across Egypt, were propaganda masterpieces, ensuring his people saw him as invincible. The Battle of Kadesh revealed Ramses' military genius not just in combat, but in shaping perception. As we move forward, we'll see how this victory fueled his empire's stability, enabling grand projects and a reign that defined an era. In the heart of the New Kingdom, around 1270 BCE, Ramses II presided over an Egypt that glittered with wealth, power, and stability. At the peak of his reign, his empire stretched from Nubia's gold-rich deserts to the Levant's trade routes, a vast domain sustained by the life-giving Nile and the pharaoh's iron will. Governing this sprawling land required more than divine charisma. It demanded a sophisticated system of administration, diplomacy, and resource management. This final chapter explores how Ramses II, as both god-king and master strategist, ruled his empire, balancing the needs of priests, nobles, and commoners, while ensuring Egypt's prosperity. From the bustling capital of Pi-Ramesses to the fertile fields along the Nile, we'll see how his governance cemented his legacy as Ramses the Great. Ramses' empire was a marvel of organization, knit together by a network of officials, scribes, and nomarchs, regional governors who managed Egypt's 42 nomes, or provinces. Picture the pharaoh in his palace at Pi-Ramesses, a dazzling city he founded in the Nile Delta. Its turquoise-tiled roofs and golden statues gleamed under the sun, a hub of government, trade, and military might. Here, Ramses met with his viziers, chief advisors who oversaw everything from taxation to justice. The vizier of Upper Egypt, based in Thebes, and his counterpart in Lower Egypt, ensured the pharaoh's decrees reached every corner of the land. These men, often drawn from noble families, were his eyes and ears, reporting on harvests, rebellions, or foreign threats. The Nile was the empire's lifeblood, its annual floods transforming arid land into fertile fields of wheat, barley, and flax. Ramses understood this, investing in irrigation systems to maximize yields. Imagine farmers in the Fayum, guiding water through canals built under royal orders, their crops feeding not just villages, but the laborers building temples like Abu Simbel. Scribes, the backbone of administration, recorded every bushel of grain on papyrus scrolls, ensuring taxes flowed to the royal treasury. These taxes, paid in grain, linen, or labor, funded Ramses' armies, monuments, and lavish court. A single bad flood could spell hunger, so granaries stocked during good years were guarded like gold, their contents distributed to prevent famine. Ramses' governance extended beyond Egypt's borders. His peace treaty with the Hittites, signed after Kadesh, opened trade routes, bringing cedar wood from Lebanon, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, and spices from Punt. Picture merchant ships docking at Pi-Ramesses, their holds brimming with goods, while diplomats exchanged gifts with envoys from Mitanni or Babylon. This trade enriched Egypt, filling royal coffers and enabling grand projects. Ramses also maintained garrisons in the Levant and Nubia, ensuring loyalty from vassal states. In Nubia, temples like Abu Simbel doubled as fortresses, reminding locals of Egypt's might, while honoring local gods to ease tensions. The pharaoh's court was a complex web of power. Nobles, priests, and military leaders vied for influence, their loyalty secured through land grants and titles. Ramses rewarded his allies generously but kept them in check. The priests of Amun, whose wealth rivaled the crown's, were a particular challenge. By building temples and donating gold, Ramses ensured their support, but he also appointed loyalists to key priestly roles. Imagine a grand audience in Pi-Ramesses, Ramses on a lion-carved throne, nobles in linen robes, offering tribute, while scribes record every word. This display of power reinforced his divine authority, binding the elite to his rule. The common people, farmers, artisans, and laborers formed the empire's foundation. Most lived in mud-brick villages, their days spent sowing fields or crafting pottery for the markets. Ramses' monuments relied on their labor, often conscripted during the agricultural off-season. Picture a quarry at Aswan, where workers, glistening with sweat, chisel granite under the watchful eyes of overseers. While some toiled willingly for the god-king, others grumbled under the strain of taxes or labor demands. To maintain morale, Ramses ensured festivals like Opet brought splendor to the masses, with free bread, beer, and celebrations that united all classes in worship of the gods and their pharaoh. Justice was another pillar of Ramses' rule. Local courts, overseen by nomarchs, settled disputes over land or trade, while the vizier handled major cases. Papyrus records from Deir el-Medina, a workers' village, show complaints about unpaid wages or stolen goods, resolved through oaths to the gods. Ramses' laws, rooted in Ma'at, aimed to preserve order, ensuring no one noble or peasant could defy the cosmic balance. Severe crimes, like tomb robbing, faced harsh penalties, often death. To protect sacred sites, like the Valley of the Kings. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey through the world of Ramses II and his legendary empire. I hope you were captivated by the tales of ancient Egypt, from the sacred rituals and towering monuments to the epic clash at Kadesh. If this adventure sparked your curiosity, please hit the like button, leave a comment with your thoughts or favorite part, and subscribe to catch more historical stories. Share this video with fellow history buffs, and let's keep uncovering the past together. See you in the next one.